Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to tackle the front engine mount and the transmission mount here. Basic tools you're going to need is we're going to be removing a 15 millimeter bolt that goes here. I believe all these three here are going to be 14. And these on the transmission, there's 4 here on top are 14. And we'll find out during the video. I believe the ones on the bottom are 14 as well, but we'll double check that as we go. The basic tools you're going to need is anything that might take that'll give you the easiest access to the bolts, 14 and 15 sizes. You also need a floor jack. We're going to be using my small one here. You need a 2x4 piece of wood, or anything that's wood that's flat will work. You're going to have to jack the car up on jack stands, which I already have here. And you're going to have to take off this skid plate right here that's right underneath, how do I explain it, between the engine and the radiator area, right up in here. So you're going to have to take that off. It's pretty basic. It's just held in by bolts. So you want to remove this piece out. Reason being is we're going to need access to the motor mount right down here. And that's where you see here, this top bolt. And the easiest way to remove it out is through the bottom side. So that's why I took off the skid plate. The transmission mount is just on this side, so you have to prepare it to remove the driver's side wheel. And so it's going to be right in here. Right in this area here, so we'll get there. So that's basically it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This video should go pretty smoothly. So I'll get everything set up on the driver's side. I'll meet you there. Okay, so we're set up over here on the driver's side fender well, and unfortunately I lied right off the bat here. We got 2 bolts we do got to remove. There's this cover that's blocking our access to the transmission mount. So they're only 2 10 millimeter bolts. And let me see if I can get in frame. So they're right up here. So we got to remove this panel real quick. It's just a plastic panel. Put it back. And so yeah, we're gonna have to do that first. So apologize for that. Okay, so there it exposes our mount here. This is the the part we're going to get out. There's 2 hidden bolts in the frame here, the subframe. So maybe get a little pick. There should be some plastic covers. Mine still has them, so I'm going to have to pick these out to access the bottom bolts. Okay, so I'm going to be using a swivel impact socket. It's a 14 millimeter. You don't have to. Whatever tools you have to get it loose is all that matters. For me, it's just about speed, so I'm going to use what I have. I forgot to mention that I already have the jack positioned underneath the transmission pan. You want to try to get it on center as best as you can. The block of the wood you put it on top of the jack, and the wood sits between the jack and the transmission. So I have it pre-set up for now. It's barely touching there, so when it comes to adjusting, it's already set. Alright, now since we have those 4 bolts out on top, we're going to access the bolts, the 2 bolts on the bottom holding it to the frame. You're going to need a deep socket 14 for that. It sits in really high up, plus the bolt is about this long or so. So you need a deep socket for this one. Go. Now it's a matter of jacking up the transmission, making sure that we get a gap here, so we're able to pull this mount out. And say when jacking up the car, at the same time looking your engine bay, make sure that you're not lifting it up way too high up. You're not damaging anything in the engine area. Okay, so you can tell us how much of a gap we have here. I would guess it's probably about an inch or so. Now we're going to see if we can pull this thing out. And it comes out like this. So next thing you want to do is get the mount you bought and make sure all these top bolt holes line up. The reason being is they make multiple mounts like this that look very similar, but it's for a different application. So you got to be careful, you know, where you get your parts, and make sure you got the right one. So do that before fitting it in there. Just compare the two. Alright, so now we're just going to pop the new one in. Same way the other one came out. So this one, the mount's not worn, so it sits up a little bit higher than the other one. So I'm going to have to do is just leave this here and go back to the jack and lift up the transmission just a little bit more to compensate for that, for the new height on the new mount. Alright, hopefully that's enough. Alright, let's see if it'll go in now. There it goes. Right in. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, by hand, put the bottom bolts in loosely. just so that we have some type of adjustment when we lower the transmission back down and trying to line it up with the top holes. I'm not tying them all the way up, just loosely. I'm just going to get them started. We're lucky we get this on the first try. Might take some adjustment with the jack back and forth just to line this thing up with the holes correctly. So just be aware of that. All right, so I'm gonna lower down the jack. Oops, that went too fast. Okay, since we got this lowered down, it's a little bit, these bolts here are a little bit cockeyed. These two are flush perfectly. I can twist them on by hand, but this side, it's twisted a little bit. So what you're gonna have to do, get a pry bar and try to get behind the mount and just slightly try to push it where you need it. In my case, I needed the I needed the mount to come toward us just slightly. I mean, it was just barely off. So you're just gonna have to just work your way at it. No sweat. And you want to get it lined up just like so, where it's easy just to thread right in. That's what I did. So I'm gonna get the back one started. Make sure that one still lines up fine. Just be patient. You have to adjust it just slightly so it goes in smoothly. No big deal, just be patient with it. Okay, so now I got them all started. Everything's on there. All the four have been started here. So now it's just a matter of, I have the jack, all the weight off the jack already. So now it's just a matter of tying everything back up. Go around this side here. I have a very good angle on that one. There we go. Okay, now I'm gonna get the two front ones. Now we got the bottom ones to tie up. We'll get to those real quick. And that's it for this one. It's just a matter of putting your little plastic grommets back over those bolts or nuts. And then don't forget your little shield. Plastic shield goes back on. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the transmission mount. We'll go up top and do that front engine mount. Alright, so we're set up here on top of the engine here. Just for reference, this is the header here. Our mount is down here, and the oil filter is going to be here. So what I'm going to start with is the 15mm bolt that sits right on top. of the mount. This is the one that actually holds on to the engine. Again, I'm using a swivel impact socket for this. You don't have to use what you have. I'm just going to hit this real quick off. And then there's two side bolts. They're both 14s, one on each side. So we'll do this one first. See if I can get my tool in here. Oops. And that bolt fell down to the bottom. Then you got one on this side's a little bit more difficult to get to, just because the AC lines are in the way. So let's see if I can reach it. I might be missing it slightly. Trying to do this to make sure I have clean contact and I don't strip out that nut. Then we'll be in some trouble because it's in a really tight spot. That was a smart idea. I'm gonna get one more extension on here, just to give me a longer reach. Yeah, I let the bolt just drop down to the floor. So no big deal. We need to go back there and go down there and retrieve it anyway. We got one more bolt to hit from the bottom side up. So we need to go down there and get it. Also, we gotta place the jack and the piece of wood flatly over the engine oil pan, so we can lift up the engine and balance it out. Okay, so we're down here underneath. Let me get my hand steady here. Jack I was telling you about, here we go, is it's mounted. I have it placed right underneath the oil pan here. And so you just want to kind of get it evenly, and they would hold up the engine perfectly without bending anything. So now the other thing in play was that other bolt that's underneath that I told you about. It's right there. So we're gonna have to remove that one real quick. And that's the last of them. So now we should be able to wiggle the mount. We jack up the engine slightly. Should be able to wiggle this mount from underneath here. Of course, I'm not wearing gloves and this thing is very oily. Sorry about that, folks. Alright, so we need to be able to wiggle this guy out, and it should just drop right out like that. So I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to get a quick cloth, and I'm going to just clean that mounting area where that mount sits. Like so. Yeah, see. Okay, and so now I'm just going to grab our new mount and go reverse order, upside down first in. See if I can space out here. There we go. Slide them up. Just kind of get you into place here. Just kind of where it sits. All the adjustments we can do, it can be on top. But for now, I just wanted to get that in there. And I'm going to do is I'm going to start this nut we just took off here. Just kind of just start it. We're not going to tighten it. It's going to be the same procedure. Just kind of start your nuts. Making sure to keep them loose. Well, that didn't work. Okay. It's so much fun to try to do this with one hand. See if I can sit y'all down. I don't know if you can actually see what I'm doing here, but there we go. Oh, we finally got the nut started. Alright, so we'll go on back on top now. Alright, so we're here back on top. Of course, we got the mount in from the bottom side. We pushed it up. Another thing that came with the mount kit was the top cap. It only goes one way. There's a little, I guess, a little pin out here that goes in, so this goes this way. So you gotta make sure the engine's high enough to be able to slide this between there. And we'll do that now. Make sure it sits on top. Next thing to do is to get the two side bolts and kind of mock them in. Again, just loosely. We have to do quite a bit of adjustment here to get everything to line back up. The trick is that this top bolt is a little bit tricky to get on after it's been released. So we'll get everything lined up. It might take a few tries just to kind of get that top bolt started. But what we want to do is when we lower the engine, we want that bolt to be kind of a guide to its final resting space. Excuse me. So we'll see what we can do with this. Right now we're a little bit offset. So what I'm going to do is, you notice I didn't put the bolt on the left side here, only on the right side. So what I want to do is kind of tip this mount either way to try to angle that or get that top bolt started. Okay, looks like we got that started here, so that's, I'm gonna leave that loose as well. And then we're going to get that bolt on the left side, the tough one. Try to get that one in there. Alright, so now I'm going to attempt to try to get the bolt started on the left side. This left side of the mount here. Where that came from? Okay, so this was a little bit tricky because I want to use the extension to kind of reach down there. But at the same time, I don't want this bolt slipping out of here. Access with your hands is really tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get a piece of paper. In my case, it's a receipt. And I'm going to fold it into the top here and fit it snugly onto my socket. Just like so. And so that gives us, it'll hold it just enough for us to be able to go down here and angle it into its resting space. Alright, so we got it there in the first try. I'm going to get the impact or whatever you're using, and I'm going to tighten that bolt down since we already got it connected. Okay, so that worked out well. I'm going to get the right side bolt. Oops. Well, if I can get it. Okay, so we got those locked down. Next thing is to lower the engine down on the mount, since we already got this the top bolts already started. So now it's got a guideline to rest down on. Okay, there we go. Now it's just a matter of tying up the top bolt. So next is just to tighten up that bottom middle bolt and reassemble everything, the skid plate, and we're done. Thanks for watching on this one. Wait for the next one.